Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a couple of changes to the agenda we'd like to add in under 7.4, council meeting dates in the summer months, and 9.7, Alberta Municipal Health and Safety Association. Does anybody else have any changes to the agenda they'd like to make? If
I
not,
can accept it.
oh, thanks, Murray. All those in favor? John,
In favor.
Jennifer,
In favor.
Tamara,
In favor.
Brian,
In favor.
Levitt. Okay, Levitt's not there. And Merrill's in favor, so carried. Protocol items, we have a couple to do today. First, I would like to recognize Mr. Craig Pittman, who is, I've got a little plaque here that we'll get to him eventually somehow. Craig is retiring or moving on to the Municipal District of Willow Creek. He's been the Director of Infrastructure for 8 years, starting in March 2012. And Craig, we wish you all the best in your new endeavors with the MD of Willow Creek, and good luck. And we will get you this plaque somehow in the next little while before you leave. The second one is Mr. Ross Anderson, who's been working for the Public Works Department as a gravel truck driver for 26 years. He started with the MD in June of 1994. He's decided that it's time to retire, and effective May the 1st, I guess, he retired. And so Ross, thank you again for your service, and we'll get this plaque to you somehow in the next little while also. Does anybody else have any announcements or recognitions they'd like to make this morning? If not, minutes of our April 28th, 2020 meeting. Any corrections or amendments?
I can move those minutes.
Okay. Jennifer gives a motion to approve the minutes. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
Favor.
Merrill is in favor, carried. And like I said, I'm not sure if Levitt is there, if he's not. All right, public engagement process. Anybody like to speak to council today before we move on to our delegations? If not, we have Sergeant Yetman from the RCMP to provide the RCMP report, and we'll turn the time over to him.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can bear with me while I try and get through this. This is actually my first time appearing before council on Zoom video, so it's a bit of a steep learning curve for me. This is not normally how I do business, but I'll try and muddle through it the best I can. So I'll just, as I do every other time I come before council, I will just go down through the stats. At the end of the criminal code, our main stats there, I'll see if anybody's got any questions. So the stats compared April 2020 to April 2019. So impaired driving, 24-hour, 30-day suspensions. This year we had 4. April of 2020 we had 4. April of 2019 we had 1. Assaults, we're sitting at 4 for 2020. Had 6 last year in April. Break-and-enters remain constant at 3. So 3 last year, 3 this year. Thefts have gone up. We had 2 last year, 11 this year in April. Threats, 0 last year, 1 this year. Mischief, 1 last year, 4 this year. CDSA, so Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, 0. Other criminal code, other statutes, we had 28 last year, 40 this year. Assistance to police, other agencies, general public, 7 last year, 3 this year. 911 hang-ups, 28 last year, 36 this year. False alarms, 0 last year, 1 this year. abandoned vehicles, we had 2 last year, 3 this year. Animal calls, 2 last April, 0 this April. Suspicious persons and vehicles, we had 10 last year, 7 this year. Lost and found property, 6 last year, 4 this year. Firearms Act, 1 last year, 0 this year. Check stops, it's got 0, but I'm fairly certain there was at least 1 in there, and possibly an enforcement operation as well. Traffic complaints, 40 last year, 17 this year. Traffic collisions, 10 last year, 6 this year. Bylaw complaints, 1 last year, 1 this year. And admin files, we had 3 last year in April and 0 this year. So total calls for April of 2019 were 151, and total calls for April of 2020 were 145. Are there any questions?
I guess my only question that was under the thefts, and we've seen quite a rise, and you consider because of what we're going through, that's why there's an increase there, and do you expect even more?
You know, I can't, it's really hard to attribute it to one thing or the other, to be honest with you. And I mean, certainly it's not constant month to month. You know, some months we see a lot lower number, and for whatever reason in April we saw a bit of a spike there. Now, bear in mind, this is the number of complaints that we received that are scored as thefts. There was at least 1 file in there where we got a call of a theft, and when we got to the scene, it turned out nothing had actually been stolen. So like I said, at least one file was that. But in terms of being able to attribute it to something, I can't really say. And, you know, do I expect more? You know, my powers of clairvoyancy are not very good. It's really hard to say. I mean, some months they could be a little bit higher, some months they could be down. We're out there patrolling literally all the time, you know, and but I mean, sometimes if these people are patrolling outside of or if they're out committing the crimes outside of the area we're patrolling in, or outside of the times, I mean, it's quite hard to catch them. It's, you know, all about being in the right place at the right time.
Yep. Okay.
So, yeah, I hope that answered your question. I mean, I can't really say, you know, if it's going to be a trend or anything like that. I would hope not, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. We have made some arrests of property criminals recently, and so has Coaldale, Bow Island, and whatnot. So, I mean, that's probably going to put a bit of a damper on the criminals' activity for a little while. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions on that part of his report? Carry on.
All right. So traffic, monthly traffic report, April last year compared to April this year. So you'll see right off the hop that the numbers are down. Sadly, the pandemic, as far as traffic enforcement goes, has changed the way we do business a bit. So last year, speeding, there was 21, this year 1. Intersection related, last year 0, this year 0. Other moving traffic, 5 last year, 2 this year. Seatbelts, 0 last year, 0 this year. Non-moving traffic, 16 last year, 3 this year. And other provincial acts and statutes, 1 last year, 2 this year. So total traffic numbers, 43 last year, so April of 2019, and we had 8 in April of 2020. Any questions on that?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. Collisions. So last year we had 9 reportable. This year we had 6. Last year in April we had 1 injury. This year we had 0. Last year we had 0 fatals. This year we had 0. So total collisions reported last year in April was 10. total collisions this year in April was 6. And then the park patrols, MD of Tabor Park 4, Enchant 2, the Forks 7, Grassy Lake Park 5, and other was 2. Total patrols around the area during the month of April 2020, the members did 190 patrols. We did a joint operation in April with the MD of Tabor CPOs, and I do believe that that one was probably focused on the Forks area, if I'm not mistaken. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions at all for Sergeant Yetman? I'd like to note that this week I got an email saying it's Crime Prevention Week. And so with Rural Crime Watch, how's that going? And where do we go from where they are now? Like, how's it rolling out?
Well, it's actually going really well. I've been attending the meetings. We just did a Skype meeting there, I believe near the end of last month, and we've got another one coming up here, or not Skype, Zoom, I mean. Can't keep all my systems, can't keep track of all these systems. So we've got a meeting coming up here this month. Things are going well. They're into the stage now where they're in their recruitment drive, so they want to recruit as many members as they possibly can. Some signs have gone up. So I think moving forward, we had some plans as to how the whole recruitment and membership drive was going to go. And obviously the current situation is going to influence kind of how we approach that. It's not going to influence whether or not they approach that. It's going to influence how that's done. So, I mean, right now we can't have any large scale meetings or anything like that. So the board is looking at ways of getting creative in attracting members. So in my opinion, it's coming along very well. I never went into it with the illusion that it was going to be an overnight process. There were a lot of things that had to be put into place. You needed the board, now you need members. The board we've got a great board. They're doing a lot of good work. I would imagine that we'll be in a position to start having members come on board here fairly quickly. We'll probably know more at the next meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions for Sergeant Yetman? Not hearing any, we'll go on to Kirk Hughes, CPO report.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Sergeant Yetman.
Good morning, Council. You have the Regional Enforcement Services April 2020 report in front of you. We're going to highlight some of the stuff here. Like Sergeant Yetman said, COVID-19 and some of the preparations for that pandemic and some of the ways we responded to it in the last few months have actually impacted a lot of our stats, as you'll see. Scrolling down the first page with the nice pretty graphics, you notice a huge spike in a lot of the different types of calls that we usually receive. This is definitely COVID-19 related. For example, other agencies' assistance to Alberta Health Services had 9. In the past, you'd be very surprised to find even one of those. Assist other agencies in regards to things, in regards to COVID-19 compliance. A lot of our trespassing, as you notice in the back, even our patrols are up. With the emergency COVID-19, we had 26 calls for service. Most of those calls were easily handled at the desk. There were calls like, is the Forks open? Can I take a wedding photos at the ND Park? What are the rules about playing baseball? So most of those things are pretty easy to deal with by CPOs. Some of them did require some patrolling. As you notice, our trespasses went up to 14. A lot of those trespass complaints had to deal with the Forks and the MD Parks. Thankfully, there was no COVID-19 tickets issued. There was a lot of warnings, and certainly we did a joint force operation with the RCMP, which was very successful. Total incidents for the month was 161. That's a large increase. A lot of that, a vast majority of that was because of COVID-19. And of course, as the spring happens, we're into the road ban season, and a lot of the heavy traffic that we normally stop is also kind of increases those numbers. Patrol routes were 468, again, a marked increase of about 100. Again, that has a lot to do with the guys actually on the road dealing with the COVID-19 patrolling and some of the trespassing reports. We only 21 tickets this month, which seems like a lot, but a lot of that has to do with joint enforcement with the RCMP. We managed to get a lot of trespassing tickets as well as some liquor tickets in certain recreational areas. So that number, again, like Sergeant Yetman said, is impacted by COVID-19, the inability for us to sometimes pull over and proactively stop vehicles. However, enforcement is still occurring with speeds and weights and measures. We're just being a little bit more selective on how we enforce it, and of course trying to keep social distancing and keep not only the public safe, but our officers safe as well. The 72 warnings, a lot of that, a vast majority of those had to do with COVID-19 and with things like trespassing and ensuring that people are keeping social distancing, who their family members are, and that, again, not a very high number, but that is definitely COVID-19 related. Toba calls for service for the month of April. We did a birthday parade with the RCMP for a 6-year-old boy. That was extremely fun. It was really neat to turn our lights and sirens on, and the smile on his face when we dropped off the birthday bags was pretty exciting. We did assist the Alberta Health Services with a follow-up for someone who was allegedly not following the self-isolation protocols. I think between the RCMP and CPOs, we've dealt with a numerous amounts of these in the last few weeks. This is just a good example of AHS providing the information to the CPO program, us checking in with the RCMP, and then the actual protocol being followed and implemented quite well. Our protocol for dealing with COVID-19 was passed out to other community peace officer programs in Southern Alberta, just because it's a very comprehensive policy and other places wanted it, and we have no issue sharing that stuff with them. CPO Peters is out with the RCMP in Joint Force Operations, like I said, on the 19th of April on a Sunday. It was very successful, and we're very happy to see that kind of operation continue in the future. Public education activities for the month of April, it was speed reduction month. So some of those tickets you do notice had a lot to do with select traffic enforcement for speeders and, of course, road ban compliances, which was really high on our list. We've been spreading the AHS COVID-19 messaging on social media as much as we can, and we're trying to indicate that as much in low German as possible. CPO Peters has done fantastic work. That's probably why his patrol logs are so high, touching base with our Hutterite and Mennonite communities and spreading that message out there. I did find myself on Lethbridge News Now on 2 separate occasions, one for COVID-19, which was excellent. That's a great media platform to get out. And another one to do with rattlesnakes, which have come out of their den. We did receive some rattlesnake calls on the 19th of April, and we've gotten a few since then. They're just coming out and they're on the trails, which is good. That's what they're supposed to do. We did make the front page of the Taber Times regarding our COVID-19 enforcement, as well as the RCMP. It's always positive to get press out there. And we're working hard at the CPO station, getting the office furniture and stuff set up. And I don't want to use the word entirely decorating because that's something we don't want to say, but we are decorating the office. So social media insights were up in April as well. They've been increasing almost every month, which is very positive. Means that message is getting out there to our citizens. Fire response for the month of April was 0 as well. Community events and patrols, again, the birthday parade that we did with the RCMP, and I think we might have another one coming up here. We did remember the Humboldt bus tragedy, and of course we celebrated Telecommunication Dispatchers Week with our friends at Taber Police. Sadly, we did reflect on the events in Nova Scotia, and we did mark National Volunteer Week again with some social media posts. A lot of our CPOs do a lot of work after hours to support our strategic plan, and we like to recognize that. Interagency meetings, again, we're extremely busy this month. A lot of that has to do, of course, with COVID-19. Sergeant Yetman and I have spoken on more than one occasion, on numerous occasions in the month of April, to ensure that our responses to COVID-19 were in conjunction with each other and supported each other. And as always, we have great support from the RCMP in that regards. I did speak to the CAO of Barnwell, again, for COVID-19, make sure if there's anything that they need done over there. I actually hosted a regional peace officer meeting for all the sergeants in Southern Alberta. That's kind of where our policies and stuff came out and became quite popular. We're touching base with the sergeants on every 2 weeks, ensuring that everyone's got the right policies in place. And if there's anything we can do to assist each other in these times, that's something that we're working on. We've done some work with Fish and Wildlife, especially with the Forks. The fishing season has opened up. You'll see joint force operations with Fish and Wildlife coming up very shortly. and I suspect the RCMP as well. That's kind of in the preliminary stages right now. I did speak to Danny Liu, who is the Alberta Public Health Inspector. We're just following up some cases in the MD of Taber, and I did participate in the Temporary Foreign Workers teleconference, as well as the EOC meetings held here at the at the MD of Taber. Training, of course, is very self-directed at this point because we simply can't have training officers going to attend training like they normally would have had in this time of year. So they did some good work there with the Traffic Safety Act, which was a PowerPoint provided by RCMP's Traffic Services. Just kind of highlighted some of the new changes to the Traffic Safety Act, which is always good to be up on date on. And I completed a wildfire evacuation protocol course through the Alberta Fire Training Officers Association. I don't suspect that we'll have those issues, but it's always good to be prepared, especially because this last week was Emergency Preparedness Week. Bylaws were busy. We had 37 of them. A lot of them were compliance checks and unauthorized uses and parking. That's partly, I would suspect that some of that's COVID-19 related for the parking issues and the unauthorized uses. We are following up on some other files that have occurred in the month, such as the application of oil on some of our MD roads to control dust. Search and rescue, I'm on the national committee now to review the search manager program. It's a brand new committee. I'm pretty excited about it. There's some changes that need to be updated and basically to incorporate some of the internet stuff that's occurring with search and rescue in regards to social media. The course for Yellowknife RCMP has been extended to the fall of 2020, again, COVID-19. Speaking about Rural Crime Watch there, Reeve, CPO Butler did attend that Zoom meeting with Kevin O'Grady and Sergeant Yetman and a few other people. We do have the Rural Crime Watch signs, and we have a post coming up about that on our social media page. I think had COVID-19 not started, we would have had a very positive influx of new members to join the Rural Crime Watch, and we had the sign sitting at the MD of Taber for distribution. We're actually working on a way of to. Sorry. We're actually working on a way to disseminate those signs so we can get those people out, get those signs put up. As for emergency management, of course, COVID-19 is our biggest priority, and we're going to continue doing that at the upcoming events. AHS compliance chance to temporary foreign workers will begin. There's actually a protocol in place we're working on, and we have another regional CPO meeting. It was actually held on Friday before this report was submitted. So, Council, that is your April 2020 Community Peace Officer report for the Regional Enforcement Services. Subject to any questions from Council, of course.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Kirk on his report? Yeah. No questions? We'll need a motion to accept Sergeant Yetman's report.
I can give you that motion.
Okay, that was John.
Yes, it was.
Yep. Okay, all in favor, Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill? In favor, carried. And one for Kirk's Community Peace Officer report.
I can give you that motion.
Tamara gives a motion to accept. All in favor, John?
I'm in favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill, in favor, carried. Thank you very much for both of you for all the work that you do in the MD, and carry on. Have a good day.
Thank you.
On the line, I believe we have Peter Casarella from South Grow, who's going to give us an update on in moving to get the economy back open and programs that are available to help businesses, et cetera, do that. So go ahead, Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for having me here today. Can everybody hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
thumbs up.
Yeah. I think I've met everybody on the call before. My name is Peter Casarella. I'm the Executive Director of the South Grow Regional Initiative, one of your employees, and also working for 26 towns, villages, rural municipalities across the region. I'm here to give a brief update on the Regional Economic Task Force that South Grow's been heavily engaged in to try to support as many of our regional businesses communities and employees to get through this crisis to the other side in as best shape as possible as we can. Just give you an overview of what we've been doing, what we're working on next, a brief outlook on the economic situation itself, and some steps that you guys can take if you haven't already been taking them already. Now, I did send out an information package, which is a hopelessly massive amount of information, so I'm not going to go through that screen by screen or line by line. I'm going to just talk through some key points that I have available here and be happy to answer questions on the back end as well. So first of all, when this all hit, everybody in Southgrow, along with everybody else, was scrambling to figure out how to get things rolling and how to make their own lives fit with the new normal and the upset situation, that sort of thing. So when Economic Development Lethbridge came along and said, "Hey, listen, we've got a plan. We already sit around the table together and work on projects together with the attitude that we're all in this together and the economy is regional. So let's tackle this thing together regionally as well." So they presented the plan to Southgrow, which the board reviewed, and we signed on to. We matched the dollars that they were putting in on the front end, so we're an equal fiscal partner in the effort. The intent of the Regional Economic Recovery Task Force is to pool our resources to prevent the duplication of efforts so that regional staff are freed up to work on all of the other things that are demands on their time other than pursuing all of the things like compiling information and preparing sheets to send out to everybody and doing all of the things that we could just do once together and everybody could share. Also to provide a one-stop shop for support for both business owners and employees and make that available regionally to everybody as well. So what we've done at this point is we put together a fairly effective task force. I'm not going to lie, it was messy at the beginning because everybody was scrambling. We were building a plane in the air. We've got centralized website services available, both from Economic Development Lethbridge and on the Southgrow webpage as well, that everybody in the region has had the opportunity to link to so that they don't have to build their own web pages. Some communities like Taber have opted to do their own anyways, but for many of our communities that don't have the capacity, we've done that for them. Just centralizing all of the crazy amount of links to all of the information for all of the supports that are available federally, provincially, and from other associations, that sort of thing. And that is updated every other day. There's something new that gets changed and updated, and check the links because links are breaking all the time, just with how fast things are moving. The second big and important thing that we got up and rolling after we got just the basic information ready to push out, and we keep pushing out to everybody, is we've made a hotline, a support hotline available. So right now there's a phone number that anybody in the region can call, and that phone number connects through to the 6 task force team leaders. I'm one of the 6 there, and they can talk to each of the team leaders about various things. The line also connects through to some support staff who are based out of Economic Development Lethbridge as well, that everybody in the region has access to. I apologize in advance if you hear dogs or kids screaming and barking in the background, because this is how we do life now. So if anybody can call in there, and if you're a business owner, you can call in and you're confused by all the information, you can get guidance from people who are dealing with this stuff and having it in front of them every single day to explain, okay, here's where you go to access this. These are the supports that are available for you in your current situation, et cetera, et cetera. You can also get help with walking through the applications themselves, because as you and I all know, government paperwork is just mind-numbingly frustrating sometimes. And those of us who wait in it get frustrated. So for the common person, it's just a mountain of impossibility sometimes. The other nice thing that is now online and available too is anybody who calls into that hotline can book a free appointment with a lawyer, with a financial advisor, with a business advisor, or a technical advisor available now through the National Research Council too. So you don't have to pay for these appointments. And if you're a business owner or an employee who's lost their income, you can sit down with one of these experts to review your personal situation. And this is time that's been volunteered by the partners who are involved in this initiative. We've had a lot of private companies step up to volunteer their people's time, such as big financial institutions and law offices, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a great resource. So what's coming in the future is we have had office space centrally located in Lethbridge here donated to the task force as well. So eventually, when things loosen up, we will move this support center into an actual bricks and mortar center where people can book their appointments and come and sit down one-on-one with one of these advisors, and actually talk to somebody face-to-face and get assistance. And it'll be a place that we can plug in more assistance options as they come available too. Other things that we're doing to support the recovery efforts. Number one, we are tracking metrics. We've been doing a lot of this tracking ourselves, utilizing the capacity that's available through some of our partners. But now we've officially gone out and spent some of the task force money to hire a firm that is also a global site selector firm that's doing this kind of tracking for regions to tell us how the market is changing, how the actual numbers are changing, so that we're actually going to have data we can use on the backside of this to inform decisions we make going forward. It has the added benefit of putting our region onto the map for one of these global site selectors companies. It's a company called CAI. But so we managed to sneak in a little bit of regional marketing there with a big player as well. We are also engaged in a labor market study right now for the entire region that you've probably heard of already. It's a big regional effort. We've managed to, the timing was decent for that project because we just really started getting data flowing in from it when this hit. So we were able to pause all of our data collection, adjust everything, and I've got to review another survey this afternoon before we start sending stuff out again. So we've got a bit of data from before COVID. We're going to have a lot of data from kind of in the middle and on the back end of it as well. And so the project's changed, but we're still going to get the information we need to inform the development of our training here in the region to address skills gaps and labor shortages in the new market that we're going to be experiencing as well. We're also looking at, I'm working aggressively this week, head spinning, on applying for more money out of the Alberta government from the Labor Market Partnerships Program to set up a regional import replacement and capacity matching program. What I mean by that is, for example, business A in Taber has suddenly lost a whole bunch of their business because of the shutdown of the oil sector in the region and other people not being able to order their services. But they've got all these big shops and equipment and capacity that can be easily transferred to another sector, such as agri-food or industrial tech, that kind of thing. So it'd be nice to have somebody in a chair working for a year or two who's identifying that opportunity in those resources and matching them up with another business in the region or even outside of the region that needs those services that maybe can't get them from overseas because supply chains have been disrupted, or is willing to be a good regional player and negotiate on what it would look like to get their services here instead. This is something that all of us economic development officers in the region have been trained to see as best practice, import replacement, sourcing more things locally. And this might actually give us the money and the situational necessity to actually get it done on a regional basis. So that's exciting. We're also looking at labor support programs as well. I'm going back and forth with my friends at Alberta Labor who are located here, trying to figure out what that looks like, because we don't want to duplicate what private businesses are doing, but maybe there's a way that we can leverage that on a regional scale to try to make getting people who are unemployed back into the labor market as easy as possible. Jumping off of the task force, I just want to give you a brief update on the economic situation because the April jobs numbers just came out last week. It's not as bad as a lot of economists thought it might be. It's still pretty bad, but Southern Alberta's once again got that advantage where we're kind of sheltered a bit. So nationally, the economy lost about 2 million jobs in April. Some economists were predicting up to 4 to 5 million. So not as bad. The unemployment rate hit about 13.4% provincially, which is up 4.7%, and 13% nationally, which is up 5.2%. Now, the real numbers of people who've been forced out of the job market is likely much higher than just that number because it doesn't capture all those people who just are not participating in the job market, which has definitely gone up as well. Once again, not as bad as the 1930s or maybe even the late 70s when we had stagflation, but still bad. Here in Alberta, this all meant about 244,000 jobs were lost, down 16% from February before this all hit. In our region, the Lethbridge Medicine Hat region, in which you're smack dab in the center, we've hit about 6.8% unemployment, which is up 2.2 points. It's nice to point out that that is still lower than most of Alberta before this crisis hit. So once again, not terrible. We've got the lowest unemployment figures in the province by more than a full %, and our unemployment is still lower than many areas of the province. The actual breakdown in our area is concerning. Employment was down by about 7,600 in our region this past month. 7,600 people in the Lethbridge Medicine Hat region out of a job. A large portion of these job losses were part-time positions, which is good news in the sense that it's less money pulled out of the economy, if you take what I mean. The full-time positions held up pretty well. The sectors that saw the biggest losses were wholesale and retail trade, no surprise there, accommodation and food services, retail employment. The bigger concern is that there was a very large drop in educational services employment by about 1,300 jobs in April. That is a big hit because those are good paying jobs. That's a lot of money pulled out of the regional economy. The good news, well, employment in professional, scientific, and technical services is up. No surprise, it's a good sign that the economy is adjusting fast in real time to the new conditions, proving the old adage that when there is economic change, people move into new sectors. When jobs are lost, they find new ones, which is always a good thing. Manufacturing is only down about 500 jobs overall, and actually increased in April, went up by 100 jobs, down overall, but also a good news story, all things considered. And jobs in the financial industry are also staying steady, which is a good sign to me because it perhaps heralds confidence from large financial institutions that they can maintain their workforces to the other side of this. And they're the ones who've got a lot of eggheads sitting around crunching numbers constantly. So their confidence is probably confidence for everybody. And while construction numbers are down, we're likely to see them surge in the very near future as stimulus funding starts to reach local projects, which is a good idea. So what can the MD of Taber do? Number one, use the task force. Get as many of your individual business people and employees through to the other side with jobs and businesses intact. The number one best asset that South Crow can offer you right now is all those advisors. Every person you refer in who talks to one of the advisors, and there's some really good advisors, who helps them figure out their personal situation through the stress to get to the other side intact and able to still employ people, that's a huge win. For every one individual person you push through the other side, that's a win. Number two, we did send out a community action plan that we put together, the committee that Kirk and I are on working to support job retention in the region. Review the community action plan. If there's things on there that you've done, awesome. If there's things on there that you can do, great. If you can leverage the volunteers in your community to do more of them, even better. A lot of that is that personal one-on-one contact to business owners and to people who've maybe lost their jobs to identify their needs and help to connect them to a service that they might not know exists to help them. Second last point, invest in infrastructure. I've been talking with Bryce over the past couple of weeks about you guys moving forward with your broadband action plan. That is awesome. Huge applause from myself, made my day, because we've been, obviously singing the praises of broadband for a long time. That big study we did last fall proves that you're making the right decision. If you can afford the investment now, it will pay dividends to the MD of Taber and the people in your region in the long run. Your books might not like it, but government never has to make money. That's not the role of government, right? Just make life better for people, provide more opportunities on the back end of this. And if this crisis has proved anything, it's that broadband is essential. And then finally, if you're able to pick up the phone today or tomorrow or the next day and call Rick McIver or send him an email or call Grant Hunter and bug him about Highway 3. Let him know how important it is. Let him know how many jobs could be created. If the government committed stimulus funding to those shovel-ready projects along the highway, those sections that mostly lie between Taber and Medicine Hat, which are pretty much ready to go, that could provide a huge boost to the entire region right off the bat. And we're hopeful that they will commit to something along there, and we are working really hard with our partners in the Highway 3 Twinning Association to make sure they do, but every little extra push will help. This is definitely squeaky wheel time, so if you can do anything to help us squeak the wheel, it's appreciated. Happy to take questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Peter? My first one, Peter, was back to the business advisors that you talked about. How do you go about accessing those for small businesses?
Yeah, so you just want to call the hotline. There is going to be a booking tool available on Economic Development Lethbridge's website, chooselethbridge.ca. As of yesterday, the booking tool is not up and available. They've been having some technical challenges, but you can either call the hotline and say, I'm looking to talk to an advisor through your Economic Recovery Task Force initiative, and tell them what your problems is, and the person on the other end of the line, whether it's me or somebody else, will help connect you with the right person and get you booked in for an online meeting, probably through Zoom or another platform.
Okay. John, go ahead.
And, sorry, Reeve, it's just Kirk here. Some of this information that Peter's talking about was discussed on Friday afternoon. We had a regional economic recovery task force meeting. We've been having them every month. This has actually been a very long project, a very quick project. And I think Peter's got the best analogy from Trevor Lewington, is that we're building an airplane in the air. And that's literally what we've been doing with this. Some of the information that Peter's discussing here is due on our website. We are fixing some of the broken links and some of the other technical issues that Peter's mentioned already. We're hoping to have this up and running. I was hoping for today, to be honest with you, to link it to certain things like Choose Lethbridge, and then that way we can have it on our website under our economic development tab. So we're hoping to have that put out to our residents today. But certainly on Friday, when some of this information did change for us, we're very active in this committee, and we're very active in this task force to ensure that we get that message out there to all our businesses and residents that might be struggling through COVID-19.
Okay. John, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Yes. Thanks, Peter. You guys have done a wonderful job having everything in one place for people to look and find, I guess, help that they need either for a business or individuals. And that was one of my questions is, what is the phone number? And is that also available to small business and, let's say, people that have lost their jobs?
Thanks, John. Let me just pull up the phone number here. It's just on southgrow.com/recovery. The phone number is 1-587-800-3356. It is available to anybody who is a resident in our region. And frankly, we're not picky. If you live on the other side of the county line, nobody's going to turn you down or away. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. And I'm hoping that number will be up soon on our on the MD website as well. Thanks for the work you guys are doing. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks,
the more
Bob. We're hoping to have
information.
that number up today.
Go ahead, Kirk.
Sorry, I was just responding to Councillor Turcado there. That number should be up there today.
Okay. The more information we can get out there for businesses that have been struggling or closed, and how to help them get going again, would be very helpful and useful. Any more questions for Peter?
I just have one, not necessarily on this, but Peter, could you give us an update on the RETA funding from the province?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as some of you know, Jim Willett and myself spent a solid 6 months working really, really, really hard, along with some of the other RETAs, advocating to maintain our funding. It was not maintained. We ended up having it cut. We were told very clearly that originally the plan was to cut all of the RETA funding from the provincial government, and that all of our wheel squeaking made an impact. And so we got a 50% cut. We now get $50,000 a year from the provincial government, which is a serious blow to our books. Southgrow's in better shape than many of the other RETAs. I don't think we'll see any of the RETAs around the province close this year. It seems that most of them can hang on for a while. But we were also told to sit around the board table and talk about what sustainability for organizations look like if the organization is valuable to our regions. That was basically a signal from the ADM that we don't know what decisions they'll make after this, so cover your own butts, so to speak. So the executive, when we're preparing our budget for 2020-21, which will be presented to the full board shortly, the executive instructed me to pull $50,000 from our reserves to cover our loss for this coming year. So the draft budget that the executive is looking over right now is actually pretty decent for the coming year, but there will have to be conversations about the future.
Thanks, Peter. So would you like our municipality or Zone 1, to continue to champion it at the RMA level and then onto the province? I just see at this time and the work that's been done by Southgrow, we can't afford to lose this funding, and yet our municipalities can't afford to make up the difference.
Absolutely. I mean, municipalities are hurting right now. Everybody's getting supports except for municipalities, and municipalities don't have the ability, the legal ability to do much about their fiscal situation. Where I'm sitting, obviously, I think that the RETA provides great value to the region, and that it is this kind of regional collaboration is the future of economic development. I think it's absolutely worth continuing to advocate. Things change. Governments change their minds all the time. They're bleeding money. Investing back into economic development seems to make sense.
Yeah, I thought it was a shocking, odd stroke of the pen, and to cut that. And, we didn't have much opportunity to push for it, and maybe we were a little late to the dance. So I think as MD of Taber, as we finish your report, perhaps that would be a motion we could put on the table to increase our request to the province to continue supporting the RETAs.
It was unfortunate timing when this all struck. I know there was a very large advocacy program in place for the actual RMA convention, which had to be shelved. And then the decisions were made final a couple of weeks after that. So, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Peter at all? Okay, thank you very much, Peter. Keep working with Kirk, and like I said, the more information we can push out to our businesses and whatnot in our municipality to help them get going again and through this pandemic will be very much appreciated.
You bet. Live
Thanks.
long and prosper.
See ya. Information. Okay, we'll need a motion to accept Peter's report for information.
I can give you that, Murray.
Okay, Murray gives that motion. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor?
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill in favor, carried. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move down into the consent agenda. You have some committee reports, as well as some correspondence from the Alberta Public Works Association, Alta Link, and the town of Taber. Is there anything anybody would like to bring information from there for later?
Mine isn't motion related, but it is a question that's come from Taber and District Housing. Is this an acceptable time?
Yep.
So they're just looking for where we're at on, moving forward with the acquisition of a building. And so just wanted to put that forward so that administration could perhaps let them know as we move forward. And Taber and District Adult Learning, I might have said housing, sorry. Taber and District Housing is working on a potential social affordable housing opportunity. And so they'll be looking to our council and to the town for some support on that as well, not necessarily financial, just in general.
Okay. Carlos, were you going to say something?
Was there the first question, was that relative to the Taber and District Adult Learning? Just to clarify.
Yes, and I just wasn't sure where we're at in a public sense on that, if that's just still a working project. So I just wanted to bring that question forward, though, as far as if, once we're ready for that information or once we receive some information. They're looking for that
Very good. And I don't have any additional information at this point in time. I do have appointment scheduled for later this week to try and obtain some of that information for sure.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else from the correspondence? I think Alberta Public Works Association was wanting to know if we wanted to make a proclamation for National Public Works Week. I don't know if anybody's interested in that.
Do you recall what we've done in the past with that? Like, have we just made a motion in recognition?
Do you remember, Candace, in the past what we've done with this? Have we done anything? Candace thinks we haven't done anything with this in the past.
Okay.
Anything else from there? The last item under there is council meeting dates for the summer months. I don't know, in the past, we've usually had 2 council meetings in July and 1 in August. Anybody have any thoughts? My own personal opinion, I'd rather have 2 in July and 1 in August. I think, did I say that backwards? We used to have 1 in July and 2 in August. I would prefer it the other way around, or any other combination that anybody would suggest. But anybody have any thoughts on that? Anybody have any problem with it the way it is, or changing it to 1 in August, 2 in July?
I think 2 in July and 1 in August would be okay if that's what works better for everybody.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Brian, Jennifer, or John, Tamara, Murray?
I'm just wondering if we could just have one for July and August if we need the 2.
That was one suggestion that Arlos made this morning. 1 per month. Anybody
Summer
else?
months are usually slower.
Yep. From a administrative
I would-
perspective. Just let me ask Carlos a question quickly. From an administrative perspective, 1 a month doable, or is that?
Well, I do still consider myself a little blind on answering that, but it's doable. I mean, I've done it in other communities. That being said, I'm not totally sure on what the summer months require from a workflow perspective here with regard to council meetings, but I'm willing to try it if council wants to.
Okay, anybody else? John?
Yes, I think it's doable, especially now that our meetings seem to be much more manageable length. I think it would be definitely doable to have 1 per month, or 2 in July and 1 in August. Either way would be fine with me.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion one way or the other? Okay,
I'll move that we just have 1 meeting in July and 1 meeting in August. Merrill,
okay.
see
We're
where
just,
it goes.
We'll need to identify which
Yeah.
meetings.
so do we want to go on the second
Second Tuesday.
Tuesday of each month?
Yeah.
In July and August is? July 14th and August 11th. Does that work?
I would actually like to recommend that we do the 3rd, just because it's back to other meetings that other committee, like for SDA and that type of thing. If someone was to book holidays in the summer, it would be more convenient to have it backing on another meeting like the next day, as opposed to right in the middle and having something every single week.
But would that be, I guess, manageable by staff as well? Because these 2 meetings might be quite large. I'm just not sure if staff would be okay with it.
Okay,
Sorry.
Candace had a question or a comment.
We got it figured.
You've got it figured?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jennifer's suggesting the 21st then, and the 18th instead of the 14th and the 11th, because we'd have SDA on the
The day
17th.
before.
My concern with the 18th is for some people, they will be, you know, well into grain harvest by then. If that is I mean, doesn't matter so much to me, but I just know there's some on council that is impactful.
Yeah, and that's, speaking with Levitt, that was one of his concerns, was he just thought 2 in July and 1 in August would be better. And probably later in the month, he'd be full swing is my guess. Anybody else have any thoughts? Or Brian's made a motion here. Jennifer, did you want to?
I was gonna say, could we do July 21st and then the 11th in August?
That's 3 weeks difference, yeah. I'm looking up at Arliss and
Whatever you guys.
whatever we decide, eh?
whatever you decide.
Thoughts, Brian, John, Tamara, Murray? Murray, what would suit you?
Well, I know if you're gonna go with one meeting a month, they're gonna be pretty large meetings, then we'll still go with 2 meetings in July and just one on the 11th of August, and then that frees up
The rest of the
the
month?
harvest for farmers, so it's just a thought.
Any other thoughts? Brian's got a motion on the
I know
table. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I know there's a motion on the table, but that was one of the things and I knew that this was quite a large agenda, so I wasn't sure. As we move forward with meetings, you know, the Zoom has provided some cost efficiencies, some time efficiencies. So I wondered, you know, if that plays a factor as we move forward, and, you know, are we going to resume all our meetings in person? Are we going to be fluid in allowing, you know, some councillors to call in? I mean, it certainly changes what our cost and time is. So I don't know if this is the time to have that discussion.
I think as we move forward here, just to answer the question specifically, I think that's definitely a good idea, is to be able to provide both options, whether it be in person with social distancing in place, as well as the Zoom option and combination thereof. I think that's definitely a way forward. With regard to connecting it to the number of meetings we have, I think it would be relevant. Whatever council decides on the number of meetings during the summertime, you can make either work, I guess is what I'm saying. You can have a combination.
Okay, any other thoughts before we go to the motion? Hearing what you've heard, Brian, you want to change your motion, or you want to leave it the way it is?
Well, we've had one meeting for lots of times. We've really only changed to 2 meetings the last few years, so certainly the ability to get through. Personally, the earlier in July, the better for hog harvest. So I think I'll stick to the second Tuesday.
Okay, so just once a month on the second Tuesday.
Correct.
Okay. Brian's got a motion in front of us. Oh, okay. We're back to technicalities here. Candace is saying we're going to have to move this motion actually down to consent agenda exemption, so number 11. So we've got some time to think about that, and motion on council.
Can you repeat the dates that he was on the motion?
He's presented the second Tuesday in July, which is the 14th, and the second Tuesday in August, which is the 11th. So we can think about that, and we'll bring that back later. Anything else from the consent agenda that anybody wants to do anything with? If not, we'll need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I can give you that motion.
Okay, thanks, John. All in favor? Jennifer?
In favor?
Tamara?
In favor?
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor, carried. All right, on to requests for decisions. First is boils and soft spots in roads. Carlos or Stu?
So by way of introduction on this item, it was kind of brought to our attention that these are indeed taking place in the municipality, as everybody's aware. So Stu did prepare a memo as to kind of how they're attacking it and how they hope to attack it from a long-term perspective. Stu, would you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, the memo was just kind of informational, just to give council a bit of an update on to how and why we're seeing these things. So I've been working with Bryce in the IT department to get a collector app set up so that we can start to collect all these locations and start to make a database of where these concerns are, or where these boils and soft spots are popping up. It also gives us the ability to fix them later in the summer. At least this way we'll know where they are. And of course, once they start, you typically get that weak point, so you'll see them more often in those same locations. But so as a norm, we're just trying to come up with a strategic plan as to how we're going to handle these in the future. And it's definitely been a bit of a challenge. We've had lots of trucks stuck in roads and lots of blowouts. So we're just trying to move forward and repair it the best we can in the short term, and get something put together so we have a bit of a plan for the future.
So as far as road bans are concerned, what are you thinking, Stu?
So I've still got the road bans on. I am really hoping by the end of the week we can lift them. But every time I start to think about lifting them, I get a call about a truck stuck in another road somewhere else in a spot that I didn't know about. So I'm hoping the end of the week, first thing next week, we can lift them off, but we just have to see what we got.
Yeah. I know we've got boils in the road that I've never seen before, and they're still pretty darn soft. I don't know about anybody else's areas, but we've still got quite a few pretty soft spots in our area.
Yeah. No, and I think it kind of, with the frost coming out late and all the seeding all the seeding traffic, we kind of got hit twice here, which I think normally the gap is a little bigger than that, but not this year.
To receive for information.
Okay. Any other questions for Stu at all?
I do, Murray.
Okay, go ahead, Murray. Thank you.
Yeah, with the construction project started on Rangewood 18-2 up here by the feedlot.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the detour traffic going down 18-3, and there's a soft spot down that road, quite a few of them. So all these Super Bs that are coming off the highway going with full loads down a soft road, it ain't going to be long before that road's blown apart, I think. And I'm not sure if they should be sending some of the traffic down 18-1 instead of 18-3, or I don't know, just split it up a bit. That road isn't very good either, but I can see maybe the road falling apart shortly with all these Super Bs. And I see there was about 4 manure trucks went up the road too, up 18-3. So I don't know if they're haven't noticed them coming back down. I don't know where they're hauling to, but there's something to keep an eye on, I guess, is all I was kind of wanting. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm done now.
Okay. We've got, so DeGraff is looking after the detour roads. I've got our operators and personnel just keeping an eye out there as well. I agree with you there will be issues on that road. We'll do what we need to do, and hopefully we can keep things moving out there.
Is the construction outfit going to look after the dust mitigation too in front of them farms that go by, or that all this detour traffic is going by?
That is part of the agreement to my knowledge, that they will be looking after dust in front of those residences.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Stu on that memo?
I just have a comment. I'd like to thank Stu for the timely response and looking after the multitude of blowouts. I know you guys are putting out lots of fires here, and really appreciate it. From what I've seen, you guys are doing a good job. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, the guys have been working hard dealing with those, but like I say, it's simply a Band-Aid. It is not a long-term repair.
Okay, we'll need a motion to accept that memo for information.
I can make
I
that
can give
motion.
you that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I will make the motion.
Okay, Jennifer's made the motion. All in favor? John?
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill, carried. Circle E's grazing gravel request.
Alrighty, so this request was brought to administration, further forwarded to Public Works for consideration. Public Works had touched base with the individual making the request, who submitted a letter to that effect. I do apologize, I don't know the detailed history here, but it appears as though at some point in time in history, there was a scenario where the MD may have helped in some way. That being said, it doesn't seem like it's a annual or a regular program. So these types of requests we would forward to council and just provide the information, I guess, that we have, quite simply. So, Stu, is there anything you would want to add from administration's perspective?
Basically, history on this has been a little bit scarce, so I think Murray, it sounds like you may have a few more details on it, but yeah, if there's more information that's available, that'd be great. This is what I had, so this is what I went on.
Have you got any more information, Murray, that would help us out? Or Brian, I don't ever remember this request in my time, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Have you got any history, Brian?
We have helped out a few of the grazing reserves in the past, but usually it's when we're in the area. So it's something you kind of put on the list when the trucks are there. I'm not sure in the middle of spring when you're trying to do punch outs and stuff would be the time, but sometimes the trucks are in the area might be a solution.
Anything you can add, Murray?
Yeah, I know in the past, like I'm not on that board, but I've been on that board. I think in the past they have gravelled it and did some grading on it and even snow removal, because this is a school bus route. There's 2 kids that go to school from that residence, so I know your trucks aren't at the Copperfield pit, but even like I know the cattle go in at least after the long weekend. About 1,600 pairs go in, so there'll be a lot of liner loads that week. And even if you could grade that road going into the camp, would help out fill in some of them holes until we're in the area with our gravel trucks. I'd be fine with that.
When would you be working out of the Vulcan pit, Stu?
It'll be, I don't know, I'm just kind of guessing here, probably a month out. It'd be mid-end of June, I'd say.
Okay. And would you have resources available to just do the grading part if we were to give you that go-ahead before the 19th?
The grading I can do. The concern I have with just grading, I went and had a quick look at this location last week, and my concern would be if we do grade it that we might mix in quite a bit of mud, or like quite a bit of dirt into the top there, which in the event of a big rain or something, it may make it worse. But we do have the resources, and the grading could be done fairly easily.
Okay, what does everybody want to do?
I'll make a motion that we, gravel it whenever we're in the area, and I don't know if you don't figure, Stu, that, grading it before time would do any justice, maybe just leave it the way it is and do it after or whatever, I don't know. I haven't been up there lately, but I know I will be going up that week, but, I guess that's all I have. Give me my motion.
I have a question before we go.
Yep.
So just want to have a little bit more understanding of the request. So if it's a school bus route, so this is or is not an MD road?
The road is not an MD road. It would be considered a driveway.
So if we've done these historically, and as we would get future requests, is there any concern of precedent setting?
Is that question to administration or just to everyone in general?
Well, just in general, I suppose, because I don't, I mean, I know some other people just put down a lot of gravel in their yards because they've got soft spots and it's terrible, and they had to do that. So I just want to understand our relationship and how this works. I just need more information.
If I could speak to that, Tam, I guess the logic here is this is a community group, Circle E, similar to we do some to some seed cleaning plants. We've done some to some elevators. We've done other grazing reserves when cattle are coming in or out. I think the fact that it is a community is no different than doing a parking lot for the community hall to me. It's not a private road, it's a community.
Thank you for that clarification. That helps me a great deal.
Okay, any more discussion? Murray's given us a motion to do it when the gravel trucks are in the area, if I remember correctly. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing none. Is that the motion, Candace, to do it when it's in the area? Is that what you got? Yep, that's the motion. Okay, all in favor. John?
Opposed.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Marie's in favor. Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor. Carried. Dust control update.
Sorry, I'm just bringing it up here. Very good. Again, Public Works has prepared this memo in an effort to be informational and update council on their recent policy change. Also was initiated by a letter that was submitted to council as well, which you'll see as one of your attachments. So, Stu, would you have anything additional to add with regard to the background of the memo?
I don't have a whole lot of additional stuff to add. It's, we knew that the change that we made to the policy was going to be a fairly significant one. The main point I want to remind everybody of is that the MD is not making any money from applying dust control. So when we are receiving and dealing with these calls, that is usually mentioned that, you know, we're not making a profit on this. It's simply cost covering is all we're doing.
Any councillors have any questions, concerns on this file?
It's Tamara. I definitely appreciate the letter that we received, and but a lot of time was spent on this policy to determine what the best practice was. And at the time, it was for dust mitigation, and we didn't have enough information that would tell us it was anything other than dust mitigation. So I feel that when we made that decision, it was the right one. I am interested in the stats that you've provided. We're a little bit closer to the deadline. Have you seen more people come forward, or has it dropped off still? The people who are registering for the application.
So far we're up to about 100. So we've had another 10, 15, 20 over the last few days. Yeah, we're at 100 of the 180 now.
Stu, I have a question. If we're at 100 and we still have a few days left to go before all the applications are in, if that number stays at 100, is that substantially going to affect the cost? Like, will our costs be more because we have less partaking in the program, or will that affect it as much?
It shouldn't affect our cost because we order the product by the truckload. We're not storing bulk product on site or doing anything like that. So we don't really see a lot of cost savings on bulk. So I don't foresee it really affecting the cost on that side if we apply less.
If you only had half a load instead of a full load, does that make any difference, like cost-wise?
We would always bring a full load because it doesn't make economic sense to bring a half load. So then if there's a few spots here or there to add in, stabilize some intersections or something to use up the load, we'll use it that way. If the truck's coming anyways, a large part of the cost of this is always in the trucking. So we're better off to bring a full load.
Okay. We worked on this policy last fall. Is there any need to change the policy at this point in time, or if this was just for information?
Well, I'm glad it came when we have a ratepayer who brings a concern to us that the cost is high. It does give us the time to reflect, and since we know it's cost recovery, I think it's a good opportunity for us to just keep that in front of mind. And then my other point is, it is dry out there. I shouldn't have to state the obvious, but I wonder if, as we're doing gravel application, is there some concern about, I know, Stu, you had mentioned it might be a different kind of size of gravel going forward or something. Is there any chance that might change the dust? But I mean, rain would help, and it would help a lot of things, actually. So if you could get rain, Stu, that would be even better.
I'll work on it. But one thing I would like to add around the costing as well is I've worked with a few private contractors that do this in the past. So just for informational sake, I did reach out to a couple of them just to find out, what would it cost to bring them in to do it and us wipe our hands of it. And at the end of the day, what we're offering it to our residents at is still cheaper than what somebody would come in here and be willing to do it for. Now that was unofficial, of course. So those are just some of the guys I know.
Yeah.
Yes. And just to bring one more thing forward that the ratepayer asked me to is, would the MD have any consideration of allowing them to hire someone privately or to have a water application to the road. And I told her I would bring those forward.
Yeah, the policy, the way it's written right now, it only allows us to do work on our roads. There are other ways around through the approved contractor and things like that we could look at it. But as a general rule, given that it's our road and our maintenance, I would prefer just to keep our crews working on those roads as opposed to letting other people do that work for us. So.
Okay, any other comments, questions, suggestions?
When we get a letter of concern, does administration or the director follow up with it directly after it's been at council?
We can. I don't know if there's a set protocol in place, but we definitely can let them know that it went to council and was depending on what happens here, what the decision was, for sure.
I think it's important that we have that acknowledgement, and I will as the councillor, but I think it's important as the MD, so I don't know if you need a motion. As far as the memo goes, I would be willing to make a motion to accept that for information.
We can prepare a response letter to that effect as well.
So I could add to my agenda motion and to include a response letter to the ratepayer.
Okay, Tamara has given us a motion to accept agenda item 8.3 dust control update memo for information, as well as a follow-up letter to the ratepayer who wrote a letter to the MD. Is that what you wanted, Tamara?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, all those in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor. Carried. Request for decision on bylaw 2020 operating and capital budgets.
Very good. So on this particular agenda item, some of it will look very familiar to the recent finance committee meeting that council participated in. That being said, we have Brian Baduri here to summarize anything or answer any questions that might come up. But we are looking for approval of the 2020 operating budget as well as final approval for the 2020 capital budget.
Okay, Brian, we'll turn it to you if you have anything you want to add.
I'll just add a couple things. Good morning, everybody. The final operating capital budget are the documents that were recommended to council from the finance committee on May 1st, 2020. The 2020 proposed final operating budget projects a $24,747,000 operating budget surplus. In 2019, the operating budget deficit was $535,422. These include non-cash expenditures of just over $4.4 million for amortization. And even though there are mill rate increases in the proposed operating budget, on average, the average residential property will see a slight decrease in their total property tax bill. And the only item in addition to the property tax is in a first year for a minimum property tax. So the minimum property tax amount is $30. So if by applying the mill rate to the assessment, the total tax bill comes in at less than $30, it will be increased to, or if it comes in less than $30, it'll be increased to a total of $30.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Brian on either the operating budget or the capital budget? Now, the mill rate bylaw would come next, or,
It will come later in this meeting.
okay. Any questions, anybody?
One for operating, one for.
Okay, if there's no questions or anything, we need a motion then to accept the operating budget as presented.
I will make that motion.
Jennifer gives a motion, all in favor. John?
We didn't hear John.
Oh, in favor, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Tamara?
In favor?
Murray?
In favor?
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor, carried. And we need a motion on the 2020 proposed capital budget.
I can give you that, Murray.
Murray gives a motion, John, all in favor, John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor, so that's carried. Boards and committees.
So a quick administrative summary here on this particular agenda item. I wanted to do a follow-up as sooner than later because I didn't want too much time to pass between the time that policy committee had taken place and now. That being said, I tried to take what came as seemed to be a solid consensus of the group from that policy committee meeting and I guess put that forward as a recommended action moving forward with a couple of sub points or concept that will require a little bit of work moving forward on this particular topic. So the items that will likely require a little bit more analysis and just time in general would be, and they're in italicized bold in the summary of key points, would be the committee of the whole concept, delegation of development authority for permitted uses, SDA, and quite simply the exercise of gathering feedback from the MD representatives sitting on those identified boards and committees. The intent here is that some of this just will take a little bit more time to figure out and really see what potential impact it'll have on the available resources that we have at the MD. So from what I recall and from what we could tell there was many things discussed at that meeting. From what I recall and what we could tell based on our notes and minutes from that meeting, it seemed to be clear that there was and it's okay if we misinterpreted that, but it seemed to be clear that there is a willingness to remove the Tax Recovery Committee, the Vauxhall Recreation Board, Highway 36, Ports of the Plains Initiative, and the Old Man Watershed Council from the boards and committees chart that was presented. If that's something that council wants to move forward with, there's a recommended motion there to do that. Otherwise, I'll do my best to answer any questions that you folks have from this RFD at this point.
Okay, it seems like that meeting was quite a while ago, but maybe not too long ago, but those were the key summaries of what we discussed that day. Is everybody still in favor of removing those 4 committees from the list of committees and boards that we set on?
Merrill, I would like some conversation around the Highway 36 Ports to Plain committee. We put a significant amount of work into that committee, and certainly Highway 36 is a significant highway through our municipality. I think it would be nice to stay part of that, but looking for the rest of council feedback.
Okay, I think Jennifer was, just Tamara's. I was just gonna ask Jennifer that. Jennifer, I think you were appointed to that, were you not?
I was at one time.
And-
I don't think that I think Levitt is currently on it, or is it
okay.
me, Candace? I'm not sure. But in the 2.5 years that we've been on council, I think there's been one, maybe two meetings in all. And we had quite a conversation when we did discuss this at policy, and we did come to the conclusion that maybe it was something that we didn't need to be involved in at this time because we weren't getting any correspondence as well.
Go ahead, Candace.
The other problem we had with this committee is that we had very big problems getting a hold of them. Nobody notified when the meetings were, where they were, until after the meetings were held, we'd find out about them. I did some digging and research when this council first got on, and it was a task, that's for sure.
And
I would disagree. It's probably not run as well as it has in the past, but it is a significant route through the MD.
I know it seemed like Councillor Elfring was very involved in that board.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I don't know what's happened that has quit, but like I said, I was never on it, so I was only aware of what Councillor Elfring was doing on the committee. But it seemed like they were meeting very regularly and quite often. But as Candace has said and Jennifer said, since then it's kind of been, not much has been happening. Do you want to try one more time to see if we can't figure out when those meetings are, and or do you want to just let it go?
I think John had something to say too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we missed
I know
that.
the meeting I attended, which was quite a while ago. It looked like the CAO or whatever you want to call it of that organization, or the director or administration that was retiring, and I don't know if they have. It looked like to me that he was the one that was driving the bus there and organizing everything. And I don't know if there's a new person in charge or what the problem is, but I'm not sure why we're not getting any correspondence from them. But I don't know if that's part of the problem.
You are correct, John. They did have a change in lead there, and since that, we have not been involved in their correspondence.
Okay, so what's everybody's favor? Do you want to try one more time, or just let them, if they were to contact us, appoint somebody at that point in time, or what do you want to do?
I guess we can always reappoint.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just going to say, I would agree with what you said, Merrill, that at the point that we're notified or asked to attend something, we reevaluate.
Yeah, so it doesn't really look like they've had much meetings in, what, 2.5 years, 3? Okay. Okay. Candace just kind of Googled the association, and there's nothing really out there right now who the contact person is. So I guess I would recommend letting it go until they contact us, and we can reappoint at that point in time. So that would mean we're removing 4 committees from the committee boards and committees chart. Any more thoughts around that?
I would be willing to make the motion on that, with the recommended motion.
Okay. Jennifer's given us a motion. All in favor. John?
In favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill in favor. Carried. Respect in the workplace plan.
Very good. So this is an item that's gone through the Joint Health and Safety Committee with the MD of Taber. This item as well as the next one. They were kind of done in tandem. They're both plans that should enhance our health and safety handbook, as well as assist the MD in ultimately compliance with occupational health and safety requirements and standards. So, as CAO, I'm bringing it forward to council for proposed approval, and then followed by incorporation into our health and safety handbook, and I'll do what I can to answer questions at this point in time.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments regarding the proposed Respect in the Workplace plan that's been put together by the Health and Safety Committee?
Is this a change in the policy, Arlos, or is just update of existing?
So what you have when you look at your, I guess, the MD's policy infrastructure, you have this touched on briefly or somewhat touched on in your employee handbook, but there's nothing in your health and safety handbook specifically. Occupational health and safety, I believe, as of 2018, does indicate that it's an obligation of the employer to provide a health and safety workplace with respect to being psychologically safe as well as physically safe. So a plan in this context doesn't necessarily exist as it stands in our current health and safety handbook.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? I believe it was Councillor Bruin, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I was just curious what had changed, or so that answers it.
Much of it is new with regard to meeting the requirements of the change that took place in 2018, to be quite honest.
Any other concerns, comments, questions? If not, there's a recommended motion. Anybody willing to make that motion?
I can make that motion.
Okay, Jennifer gives a motion to adopt the proposed Respect in the Workplace plan and that it be incorporated into the MD's Health and Safety Handbook. All in favor? John?
I'm in favor.
Tamara?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor. Carried. Violence prevention, workplace violence prevention plan.
So again, as mentioned previously, this was done in tandem with the Respect in the Workplace plan as well. There is, as it exists today, there is some reference to procedures of that we can follow when violence does become apparent in the workplace. However, this one is quite a bit more comprehensive and provides a more detailed, I guess, process for both employees and managers to follow when instances like this take place. So it gives us a more clear guide in terms of responding to these types of scenarios, responding and actually dealing with them. Again, very closely put together. Well, the Joint Health and Safety Committee did much of the administrative muscle on it. CAO, safety coordinator, definitely reviewed, made suggestions, and very closely done not correspondence, but in coordination with the occupational health and safety legislation, as well as the code. So.
I can give you that recommended motion to adopt the proposed workplace violence prevention plan.
Okay, excuse me, Tamara's given us a motion to adopt the proposed workplace violence prevention plan and that it be incorporated in the MD's Health and Safety Handbook. All in favor? John?
In favor.
Jennifer?
In favor.
Murray?
In favor.
Brian?
In favor.
Merrill's in favor. Carried. Would it be okay if we took 5 minutes? Jennifer's given me the thumbs up. Let's just, it's 10:43. How about 10:50? That's 7 minutes. Do you need a motion to recess or just, okay, we're good.